Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Look at us. We're right on time. We're 2 minutes early. How's everybody doing? John, Thilo, Jan, good to see you guys. Welcome, welcome. Looks like Tom is over on YouTube. Any way you want to join us is cool to do that. We are live. I just got a notice. Quinn Jacobson just went live on YouTube. That's a good thing. So welcome. Thanks for joining us, guys. Joining me, rather. There's only me here. Beautiful, sunny, cool morning on the mountain. About 8 degrees Celsius, sunny. Just was over at the property. We're doing some building today. So I'm only going to spend about an hour or so here, but we'll cover some good ground. So thanks for joining me. I hope everybody's healthy and happy and doing well. Hello, Jean and Will, and Tom, everybody. Tom says there's rains come to Texas, cooler weather on the way, ready to mix my winter developer. Right on. That's interesting. Hello, Will. Hello, Jean. Hello to France, everybody. That's good stuff. All right. So we have a couple of things going on. I think you guys will find this interesting today. I hope you do. Like always, we don't want to waste people's time. So hopefully this is relative to where you're at and can make some good, put out some good information. Hello, Boguslav. Good to see you, brother. Hola, hola. So I thought today would cover a couple of different things. You probably saw in that little ad that I put out there. I wanted to talk about asphaltum on clear glass. Clear up some of the confusion there. Dale Wilson in Canada sent a question in. We'll look at that, about baking temperatures and things. Good morning, Jonathan Wallace. Good to see you. We'll talk a little bit about exposure. I wanted to talk a little bit about that just to have give you some idea of when we talk about exposure, what do we mean in wet collodion and all that stuff? That kind of good, straightforward information. So let me pull this up real quick and we'll jump right on it. I'm going to play a little bit. I know probably a lot of you have seen this on my YouTube channel about asphaltum clear glass. I'm just going to play a couple of pieces of it just so it gives you an idea of where we're at and what we're doing. Let me just pull up and make sure that I have everything here covered. Let's see. Wow, I don't know. I get so many requests on Facebook for membership on the wet plate collodion chemical pictures board. It's crazy, but let me just pull this up real quick. I just wanted to make sure that I cover everything here. And I'm going to get this YouTube video set up. So let's talk about asphaltum, ambrotypes, clear glass, putting gilsonite. We'll go over all that and what that means. What are the advantages? What are the drawbacks? Should I do it? Should I not do it? And if you don't know what it is, you'll find out. I wanted to talk a little bit about the difference between developer sweeps on a plate and drying out on a plate. And I want to just briefly discuss the difference because it's a little deceptive sometimes when people see their plates drying out. They think it's developer sweeps, and it's really the paper, the plate drying out, not the paper, the plate drying out. And then just a little brief discussion about proper exposure. So yeah, good to see everybody. That's great. Hello, Drew and Christina Wagner. Good to see you guys too. Beautiful day in Pennsylvania. Excellent. Good. I'm happy to hear that. I hope everybody is doing very well wherever you're at in the world. It doesn't matter. It's what matters is we're here to discuss wet plate collodion. So let's do that. Asphaltum. What is asphaltum? If we talk about, some of the vocabulary needs to be cleared up because asphaltum is gilsonite. What is gilsonite? That kind of thing. Asphaltum is another word for gilsonite, and gilsonite is a mineral. Think of it as road tar. What they pave the roads with, the black road tar. That's where asphaltum. The gilsonite is the actual powder or product. I get gilsonite powder. And if you have my chemical pictures book, if you look in chapter 7 on substrate, you'll see that I mix up gilsonite, the powder, and mineral spirits and Canadian balsam, and I brew that in a coffee pot on a boiler, and I melt all that stuff and I pour it on steel plates and I make tintypes or ferrotypes, and then I bake them. What you can do with that gilsonite also is you can cover clear glass ambrotypes with it. And it's really beautiful. It works really well. But I don't use the gilsonite that I use in chapter 7 of my book to do glass plates, ambrotypes. I don't use that particular recipe. That recipe I use for ferrotypes, pouring it on a steel plate and baking it. Can you use it? Yes, you can. But I found a better product, and we'll talk about that. I'll show it to you. It's called Angel. It's from Angel Gilding. It's what they use to back mirrors with. It's a product already made. It comes in kind of a concentrated volume, so we thin it down. But I'm going to show you a little clip of a video that's on YouTube. You can search it on my YouTube channel and find it if you want to see it, but the whole thing. But what is gilsonite or asphaltum? What does that do for the plate visually? First, an ambrotype, an image made on clear glass, uses a positive image, uses reflected light, right? So you have the image here, you use light to bounce off and reflect and show you the image. Versus a negative, you go through and print on paper behind here. So there are different concepts of how the images actually function aesthetically. And one of the big things with the positives, the reflective light, that's why when you hear me talk about galleries, and if you have a show, you want to make sure it's the ambrotypes or the direct positives are very illuminated. You can't just turn on room lights and look at ambrotypes necessarily. And you should use, here's my rule, you should use the same type of light that the image was created with to look at the image, or use the same source. And really what I say by the same source is 5600 temperature daylight light. Very bright, like north actinic light, very strong kind of UV. And what that does is what you're doing is you're bouncing the light off and reflecting the light off that positive image, and the size of the crystal, the grain of the silver on the plate, that's what's reflecting the light. And that determines the color, the brightness, the reflectivity, all that kind of stuff, right? The size of the crystal. But the other big factor is how you have that image back, that positive image. You need something dark. In the 19th century, they used black velvet. Black velvet was really popular to put behind a glass plate and frame it up and use that. Now, the idea here is to get the most reflective, and I call it sheeny. It's not really an English word, but the sheen meaning an English, how do I, if English isn't your first language, sheen means a reflective quality, or how bright, or how the reflectivity basically of it. So you want a dark black as you can get, the deepest, richest black as you can get, and the highest sheen quality or value to reflect that light, to back that image. And that's why I always say my favorite substrate to make direct positives on is black glass. That's got the highest reflectivity. You're pouring directly onto that beautiful, sheeny, shiny surface. Beautiful positives. Bounce that silver right back at you. The next best thing, and it's actually even a different quality, is pouring asphaltum on the clear glass positive. Now, that does a couple of things, right? It gives you that sheeny, reflective quality. It's very dark and rich, almost endless as you look through it. And so it'll display the positive, and no pun intended, in the best quality or light you can get. And if you use the right light, you back it properly, you're going to have a terrific image. Another thing probably some of you might not know is in the 19th century, they not only used black velvet to back ambrotypes, they also used to, because glass was so expensive, they used to make the image, process the photograph on the glass plate. They'd put it in a warm tray of water, and they'd float the image off of the glass, and then they'd transfer it onto black leather, a leatherotype. is what I call it. So black leather, black velvet. I've seen people use really matte black paper. I've seen people use black spray paint. I wouldn't recommend any of that stuff. Other aluminum, black aluminum. I've seen people buy black aluminum not to make photographs on, but to back their ambrotypes with. It works fairly well. But the highest quality you're going to get is the asphaltum, period. It's the deepest, richest, reflective quality you can get as far as an addition to it versus black glass. So what are the downsides? This asphaltum is mixed up with mineral spirits. The angel gilding that I use, I dilute it, 1 part asphaltum and 2 parts mineral spirit, so it's quite thin. I pour it, and you'll see it in the video here. Let me just pull the video up, and we'll jump over to that. We'll come back to this. Let me make sure everything's playing here.
This podcast for you concerning the wet plate collodion.
You know what's funny is this video was made 6 years ago tomorrow. It's September 6th, 6 years ago tomorrow.
I'm going to talk about, first and foremost,
I'm going to jump through this a little bit.
Or a difficult time.
So let me get to the part where I'm actually
stuck my hand down.
So I made a direct positive on clear glass.
Peering through the glass of this image when it's finished, which is kind of nice. We can talk about that for a minute as I do this. There is a value, an aesthetic value. There's also a practical value to doing this. We know, or we're fairly sure, that the asphaltum that we make ferrotypes or tintypes on, it's the same thing. That has a couple more ingredients in it. It has some Canadian balsam.
That's what I was just talking about, yeah.
Some, what else? I can't really remember. Let's see. And some shellac or minwax or some glossner. I don't normally put that in, but I know other people have in the past. But this is just pure asphaltum, thinned down or thinned out with mineral spirits, and you continue on the same path. There it is, dried down. You want to see it dried down? I'll show it to you dried down. That black thing up in the corner is my hand. I did kind of a time exposure. Stuck my hand down in there for 30 seconds. So
there's the image.
You see that or not? My preview doesn't really show it very well. But that's the image. It's dried. Sorry. Break a piece of glass here in front of you. It's dried. I'm just going to make sure it's all clean. I'm just going to clean these edges off. They look good, actually.
Okay, I'm going to mix some asphaltum up. 4 backing direct positives here. This is asphaltum, angel gilding asphaltum. I'll put the link in the comments.
Just keep in mind that there is, that's a goat hair brush. I don't know. It's an old one.
I'm tripping out on my own stuff here.
But I'll use one of my plastic doodads here. So I'm going to open up my mineral spirits and pour a little bit out. And again, this is just visual, just eyeball the.
No hard, fast rules here. 1 to 2, basically.
1 to 2 or 1 to 3, however you want.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
So, like I said, I don't know. This plastic jug will actually hold up.
Okay, so there's 1 part mineral spirit.
That is the 2 parts mineral
spirit. Or 2 parts mineral spirit, sorry.
That much, or about that much.
Half of that in asphaltum.
Of asphaltum. And we will be on our way to mixing some of this up and letting that back.
I buy it in a gallon can here from Angel Gilding.
Tomorrow and see what it looks like. See what you think about this stuff. Now this is really, really messy, so I would, forewarn this forearm, I would be very, looking for a spoon, I would be very cautious about getting around it. But there's the consistency of it right now. Pretty thick. Can you see that? Pretty thick. So I'm just going to take a couple of teaspoons of this. I've done this enough to know about where I'm at. This is so goopy and thick, it goes right to the bottom, so I can kind of tell. Again, we're not going to.
So I'm putting 1 part versus the 2 parts of mineral spirits.
Trip over that stuff, you know. Just gonna, I almost missed that one.
There it is.
Getting there. You should probably put gloves on if you don't want this stuff on your hands. It won't hurt you, but boy, it is messy. You don't know that with what I'm doing with it right now, but
once you get playing with it.
This, you'll know exactly what I mean. And this can be very, how do I put it? Very permanent. This stuff is hard to get off, so be careful with where you work with it and how you work with it if you're concerned with stains. That's what I love about having a nice work area, you know, or a dedicated work area. This is mine. I don't have to worry about spilling stuff on the floor or getting, you know, it's all mine, and it's for me to spill and stain and everything else. So I don't have to worry about it. It's really nice, actually. Let's back up here. Pardon the bangs and the noises here. I'll do this. Seal it up good. I don't know how much I paid for this. I think it was $80 or $90 or something like that. But buy 1, get 2 or 3 by the time you thin it out. It's a good deal. So here I am. I can't really show you the consistency of this because it's still dissolving and it's super, super runny. But
pretty much like collodion.
You'll see it go on the plate for sure. Why I hesitated there is I'm recording audio in both places here, so like, for the lack of a better word, I like consistency.
So I'm going to add a little more, I guess.
The density of it. Realize that this is being left out in the open in a very, very clean environment. Just want to make sure I don't have any water on that.
So just like, I'm going to pour this on the collodion side. I'll talk about this in a minute.
It's nice and level. I'm going to sit it on this cup when I'm finished. I'm going to pour it up here. I'm going to drain it back into the bottle itself. Okay, check this out. Here we go. You don't need much. That's about all you need. The same process, A, B, C.
I'm trying to let it soak into the...
And D for drain. Now I'm going to show you something here that's really critical. And that is when you start draining it off here, it's going to get really thin up at that other end, right? So I drain until it starts dripping drops. There it is. And then I roll it back on itself. Unlike anything you'd ever want to do and anything else in this process.
I'm just trying to even out the asphaltum, the layer of it.
Maybe developer. And thicken that side up.
And then, yep.
That's what it looks like if you can see it all there. I don't want to, it's still super. I'm just going to give you a couple of tastes of it.
Because it's,
I'm going to grab it, pinch it right here, and set it on the cup.
That's it.
And I am going to walk away. Actually, we're finished. You know, looks like a black, shiny plate sitting there. So there's the plate. You saw it. It's good ambrotype, well exposed, look good, cleaned up, dried completely, mixed the asphaltum and the mineral spirits. And now we've backed it, and tomorrow we'll come and take a look at it and see what we think. And I'll catch up with you then. welcome back. Decide for yourself, but I like to think of the positive things that this does. And we'll start with the obvious. You saw I did not.
Let's just get to it. I'm going to show you. I ramble here for a minute. Let's get right to it. I hope you can see the image.
Varnish, and I'm kind of looking at those as well too. But they look great. There's no.
I need to trim my beard.
So, we're all kind of risking the archivability of anything we're doing nowadays anyway.
Get to it.
I think those are all good. That's my hand up here, by the way. That's my rubber gloved hand. I went down and held the top of that bottle for 30 seconds.
So I'm going to pause it right there for just a second. Here's the thing. I poured the asphaltum on the collodion side of the image. I did not varnish the image. I poured the asphaltum directly onto the image. So what's the big deal about using asphaltum and archivability? Well, the people are going to say that it's a really dangerous thing to do because over time that asphaltum will peel up and take the collodion and the silver with it, the nitrocellulose and the silver with it, and your image is destroyed. Fair enough. I get that. I understand that. So the safe, permanently safe alternative way to do this is to pour the asphaltum on the glass side, varnish the collodion side, and pour it on the glass side. And that's great. If you like that, oh, and Bogoslaw asked that. I just saw that. Yes, this is directly onto the collodion. And the danger of this is that you risk losing the image in 100 years or 150 years or whatever it might be. I've done these for many, many years. I think the first one I did was 11 years ago or 12 years ago in Europe. And that image looks perfectly fine today. This is a product. This is asphaltum and mineral spirits. This is a product. Once those solvents are gone, all you're left with is road tar. So if you're looking at tin types, the original ferrotypes, that's baked asphaltum and you're pouring collodion on it. And it seems to hold up just fine archivally. An interesting thing happened to me. I used to buy ambrotypes on, you know, different places, little quarter plates, half plate, ambrotypes, direct positives. And I got a load of them one time. I bought a load of them one time. And in that was this beautiful, and I wish I could show it to you right now, but I always show this in workshop. There's a beautiful little quarter plate in a case. And I take that out, and it's a portrait of a woman. And I take that plate out, and I look on the back of it. And sure enough, it's been asphalted. Someone poured asphalt from about 1870, 1872, a little quarter plate positive. Someone poured asphaltum or ferrotype batter, whatever you want to call it, on the collodion side of that image. And so you're peering through the glass at that little direct positive. Held up perfectly 160 years or whatever it's been now, right? So maybe that's the exception, but there are actual photographs from the 19th century on glass that's had asphaltum poured on the collodion side that are still fine. Are there some that aren't? Yes, absolutely. And modern ones, people have been spray painting with black spray paint and stuff like that. That stuff will dry up and peel off for sure. Maybe not in 6 months or a year, but definitely in a couple, 2 or 3 years, especially if there's any exposure to it. But I feel really good about asphaltum and using that on your direct positives. So let's talk about the aesthetic we have up here. This is a GoPro camera, and it's a terrible representation. But the color is fabulous. It's a red, brown, warm tone that's just amazing. And to peer through the glass, it gives the image a lot of depth, and it's really beautiful. If you do the collodion side, and even if you varnish first, if you want to take that precaution and varnish first and then pour asphaltum, you get to peer through the glass. It gives this very unique aesthetic, much different than looking at the surface reversed, right? The surface of a collodion positive. You get turn it around, you get to peer through the glass. Another thing it does is it takes that laterally reversed image away. So now you're looking at the image like a direct positive print from a negative. So if you had writing on your shirt and it's backwards on the positive, in this one, you asphalt on the collodion side, it's correct, right? So it's more like a print. So it gives a wonderful aesthetic. I absolutely love it. Short of black glass, and there's even qualities about this that are even a little bit, the color is amazing. You don't even get that color necessarily with black glass, but it's aesthetically pleasing to me. It's I haven't had any issues archivally with it. I know you're going to hear people out there say, "Oh no, don't do that. It's terrible." Just like everything, everybody's got an opinion, right? So we're not going to be around in 100 years to see if these images peel or not. And if you're not selling images or you're not doing commissioned work, this is a great thing to play around with and experiment with and see. Okay, yes, let's do this. There's a couple of questions. Any European shop recommendations for asphaltum? Samuel, I'd jump on angelgilding.com and send them an email and ask who distributes this in Europe, because you want the same product, that asphalt or the Angel Gilding asphaltum. Let me hold on just a second. Angel, oh, I already had it up there. Angel, there we go. I'll show you the actual product that I use. I'll bring it up on screen if I can get there. Yeah, there we go. Mirror and supplies and techniques, exactly. And this is America, but you could either send them an email or call them, but an email would be sufficient. Asphalt, Gilsonite asphalt, 1 gallon. This is what I buy. This is what I buy right here, and you can see the URL here. Let me stop that one, pull this one up. Live stream, share stream, here we go. This is what I buy. I get a gallon, and this, again, if you buy 1 gallon of this, you get 3 gallons of use out of it, because maybe even 2 to 3 gallons. So you can that out or buy a smaller container. It just depends. I like to do this a lot. I like these, and especially the bigger the plates. Matt says, does the asphaltum harden without baking? Yes, it does. And again, depending on if you do 1-to-1, it's going to take a lot longer to cure out and dry, versus if you add more solvents, 1-to-2, 1-to-3, depending on what you do, that dries quicker. But nice and level, let it dry out, no baking, right? I mean, you have to bake ferrotypes, that gilsonite, to harden that, to pour collodion on it to use it, but this not. Sean says, I only use paint or asphaltum black aluminum back when I do ambrotype mounting. Yes, I'd not recommend the paint, but definitely try this asphaltum, and you'll love that as an alternative, really a better product. Tim says, I always use varnish. I love the color tone it gives. Doesn't it seem to be a problem with asphaltum? No, it's not. If you varnish your image before you pour it, absolutely. That's a safe bet. The asphaltum, if unvarnished image, the asphaltum actually interacts with the silver and gives you a unique color. I'll say that. So if you varnish, you're going to take that away. But if you varnish, you're also taking away the possibility. I don't think there's any archival questions about if you varnish and then do this. So yeah, give them a call, ask them, drop in an email, and come back and tell us what they say. What is the general drying time of this asphaltum? Again, mine's 1-to-2, sometimes 1-to-3, depends on what it is. You just saw in the video, that was 1 day. So I poured the plate, let it sit level for a day. The next day I came back. Well, I took it outside, so I thought it'd be better light. And 1 day we'll set up and off you go. So Jean says, a kind of sandwich, no varnish, clear glass collodion facing down, another glass with painted black. Okay, yeah, Yeah, that's great. No problem. You'd get, I think, a better look and better results depending on the image. Try some of this. Try it and see. Your mileage may vary, but it's always a great thing to experiment, right? So a lot of this is we talk about experimenting with the products we're using and see what works and what doesn't. I'm not saying that this is completely archival. I know they use it. You can read about what they use it for. So if they have mirrors peeling off, high-end mirrors that they back with this stuff, and that stuff starts peeling off and you get, all kinds of stuff, I don't think that's going to happen. But if it does, play with it and see. So make sure you feel like you feel good about it. And again, I am not saying that this is for everyone. It's just one of those things that you have in your quiver, as I say, just another way to possibly use or possibly use for your work. Who knows? So so that's the kind of the gist of the asphaltum. The big thing you're going to hear is about the archival quality, blah, 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 all that stuff. You can pay attention to that. That's fine. That's no problem. But at the end of the day, what you're looking at is you're looking at an aesthetic quality that will last at least, if you use this product, will last at least as long as you're alive, I think. So can you pre-mix it and store it? Yes, you can. I used to always have 1 liter pre-mixed around. The only reason you see in the video I mix a little bit up is just to show people how I do it. Your mileage will probably vary, but yes, mix it up. There's no shelf life. Keep it sealed up and use it when you want. It's messy. If you get good at it, you won't even get any. You can wear gloves if you want, but you won't even get any on your hands, or you won't spill anything. It may take you a couple of times to do it. Take some of your bum glass plates that images that you don't, you could take or leave, and try it. If they're not varnished, try some unvarnished, try some varnished, play with them, look at them, see how it looks and feels. And then over time, put them on your shelf. That's what I've done. I've had them around, I know, over a decade, 10 or 12 years I've been doing this, and I haven't had any problems with it. I don't use spray paint. I don't use any of that stuff. This is what I use. So just to clarify that. I have a question from Dale Wilson in Canada. Let's pull that up, and I will directly, I only briefly got to see it this morning. We have people over helping us build our well house today a little bit, so I've been preoccupied with that for a minute. So Dale says, and Dale would be in here if he had an internet connection. He said where he was at today didn't have a good internet connection. But he says, yeah, unfortunately, no bandwidth where I'll be tomorrow. Question regarding asphaltum. Would you bake asphaltum in a convection oven? And if so, time and temp. 70 degrees for 5 minutes. So here's the thing. An oven is very, very hot, right? It's traditionally, he's talking about using the ferro-type batter, right? The asphaltum, you wouldn't want to put a image that you've asphaltum into an oven. I think what he's asking about is baking the ferrotypes. So baking ferrotypes at 70 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes probably be not quite enough. You want to get up into the 100, 110 Celsius degrees for 3 to 5 minutes. There's a couple of different methods that I lay out in the book. In chapter 7, you can look at about how to bake these initially. And you can bake them more than once. I use a barbecue grill if I'm making ferrotypes. This is about ferrotype baking. And this is the confusing part about all this. When we talk about gilsonite or asphaltum, we're usually talking about covering steel plates and baking them to make ferrotypes. We're not talking about glass plates, diluting the asphaltum down and putting it on as a black surface. So those are two very distinct things. But Dale, to answer your question, 160 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 minutes will not sufficiently bake, or 70 degrees Celsius will not sufficiently bake those tin types for you. So a different arena, but basically the same. We're talking about the same thing. So anything else on that gilsonite? Can you premix? Yeah, good. Super. That's what I wanted to cover. I hope I didn't confuse people more with it. But asphaltum on clear glass ambrotypes is different than baking ferrotypes and making a tin type substrate. And again, here we go with this terminology again. So when I say tin type or ferrotype, in this case, I mean an actual steel plate covered in asphaltum and baked, not aluminum. I know we call alumatypes tin types now. So verbiage is tough here, guys. I know these words and then another language and different languages, it's tough to understand all this. So I just wanted to try to clear that up a little bit and talk a little bit about some alternatives to, black paper, spray paint, or, Jean said he backs them with alumatypes. I've seen a lot of that done. People have even spent money on black glass, and they back their clear glass ambrotypes with a piece of black glass, ironically enough. Right? That's up to the person. I make no judgment on how you want to present your work. But the best quality and the unique quality you're going to get with backing clear glass ambrotypes with this gilsonite from Angel Gilding or some similar product and on the collodion side is a very unique image. It's very different. Like I said, do some experiments and compare them. Glass side asphaltum, collodion side asphaltum, collodion side varnished and then asphaltumed. Look at these different products and see what aesthetic appeals to you. See if it has any bearing on again, we go back, what you're trying to do, right? Again, that's why the roadmap and your journey in photography and your work and what you're trying to produce means a lot when it comes to aesthetics. So this may or may not be a good alternative for your work or your workflow. I think just straight up, it's a beautiful aesthetic. I think straight up, it's a unique color. It's a color you can't achieve with anything else in the process because of that dark, rich road tar hitting that silver and nitrocellulose, most just the silver really, and then that look peering through that mill or 2 mils of glass, looking at the silver image. Very, very powerful aesthetic. So, having said that, let's move on to looking at. Is there anything else? You can jump in and ask whenever if you think of something you want to continue on about the asphaltum. We will, but
hey,
yes,
Quinn, I got a little something I can add here.
I hit the wrong button, John. I'm sorry. Hold on. I hit the wrong button.
No, you're good. So
I'm trying to enlarge you. There you go.
Oh, no, you're good. So when I first started the asphaltum journey, I was trying to kind of come up with my own idea of how to make something that's more of a pigment based, because I actually come from a history of oil painting and all that. So I actually picked up a couple of kilos of bone black pigment, and I also used the Canadian balsam and a Japan dryer, and essentially made a very, very thick kind of backing. And I used one of these little, I don't know if I've got the damn sponge around here. Nah, probably not. Anyway, just a little foam triangle sponge, and just to apply it to the back. So let me try to get a little bit more light in here for you so you guys can see. All right, so that's, let me get the reflection out of there. So I don't know if anybody can see that well enough, but it's a little dark, but yeah. Anyway, that's the back of it. And you can actually see where I took a blunt object and tried to do some durability testing on there. Absolutely no sign of it on this side. So yeah, that's my own little recipe right there. But it is dark. It's got a beautiful tone to it. There's no issues, and the stuff that I use being pigment based, and the Canadian balsam, and just let it dry. That's been actually hardening up for about 8 months now.
That's beautiful. I can see the tone in that. That's a rich, nice black. Yeah.
Yep. That's
that red brown.
Yep.
This is directly on the collodion, correct?
Directly on the collodion.
Yeah.
And for comparison, this is this is gilsonite, or the actually it's this stuff right here, the Sunfelders.
Yeah, sure. Yep. That's good. Yeah.
So
yep.
This is unthinned. I wanted to see how it would pour and how it would flow unthinned.
Yeah.
At all. And that's actually the back right there.
Very good.
So it took a long time for it to dry. I mean, you're not going to be able to set up a pop-up shop and, be able to hand these right back to somebody. And this is on rolled steel. That's a 2-to-1 thinning.
Beautiful. That's what I use. That's gorgeous. And that dries a lot faster.
Oh yeah. That definitely dried faster. But I mean, the tone between the 1-to-1 asphaltum, or the unthinned stuff, and then my own little pigmented recipe right here. I mean, it's straight up same. So
beautiful. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. That's perfect examples, and great experimentation with that, because at the end of the day, that's what you're looking at, right? You're looking at trying to get an aesthetic or something that you want in your workflow or your project or whatever you're doing to match up aesthetically. And you know this, John, because you just showed us images. That is a unique color. You can't achieve that anywhere else through the process. I don't care what developer, what fix. You can come close if you work at it, but you're still going to have a more, what I call like a cream, coffee cream, yellow color without the asphaltum versus a red, brown, rich. There's just something about that. It is very unique.
It is.
When people start using it, I get emails that say, man, I tried this and I am absolutely in love with it. I've got several emails like that saying, wow, this aesthetic is stunning. And it can't show up in a video that, I can show all the videos or blab all I want. Do it. Buy a small piece of even Sunfelders, or the I've used that as before, what John just had up there, or angel gilding, any kind of asphaltum that you can thin out a little bit so that the drying time isn't 2 weeks. Thin out a little bit, get on a plate and try some. It's not rocket science. I don't use like John just showed, which is fine to do. Use a foam brush, use a puddle pusher, use whatever turns you on, right? I like to just pour it on, drain it, like I showed you, fill that weak spot up and put it level and walk away for a day. And every single one of them that I've done have turned out just fine. They're great. I still have them. There's no problem. There's no issues at all. New comments. Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Matt says that was really awesome. Thanks for sharing, John. Absolutely. Yes. I love when people can share what I'm babbling about, and it's not just me doing it. It's real world stuff going on out there. It's a great thing. Where's our thing at? Here we go. So having said that, the next kind of, we'll talk, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. The next you're presenting your plates, and I showed you a couple of ways that I've done mine. The beautiful thing about the asphaltum collodion side especially is when I put it in, pin them up with brass wires on the corner on a black mat board or a gray mat board, I don't have to worry about the backing. I don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. It's a real great solution, not only visual presentation in hand, but also mounting and presenting, and if you want to show them, if you whatever you want to do. So they're great alternatives. They're a great way to incorporate workflow for specific things, right? It's not for everything, but there are going to be naysayers out there that talk about archivability because somebody said it's not archival. Well, what is archival, right? What does that even mean, archival? Are you talking it lasts 20 years or 50 years or 100 years? What is archival? I saw years ago when Epson came out for their inkjet printers, this archival chrome inks, right? What do you mean archival? Well, they had engineers put tests together and fabricate 100 years or 200 years, and this is how it's going to last. Really? I don't know. I don't know if I buy that. And let's be honest, this is kind of an ego trip. If you're talking about, oh, that's not archival, and I just gave you an example. I physically own a plate from the 1870s that had this done, and it literally looked like John's plate there, where they brushed the back of it. You can see where they brushed asphaltum on it, right? And it's perfectly fine. Maybe that's the exception to the rule. We don't know. But really, let's be honest. It's an ego trip when we start talking about our work so important that it needs to be around in 500. I don't even think the world's going to last another 20 years. So who gives a shit, really, right? I mean, but at the end of the day, sorry, pardon the French or the English. At the end of the day, it's fun to experiment. See if try it. It maybe costs you 25 euros or $30 or something to do, 10, 20 plates of this. Maybe not even that much. Try it. See if you like it. That's all. Let's not get hung up on he's saying it's archival. I don't like to get those emails where I have to. Somebody writes me and say, "Well, I watched your video, and then this guy says this," and I try to make so many caveats in these videos. I try to say, look, I am not preaching gospel. This is my experience. Try it for yourself and see what happens. I don't have all the answers, guys. I'm just saying I'm just explaining to you what I've done over the last couple of decades, and so far I've had good luck with it. So, and people think I have a big ego. I don't really care if my ambrotypes are around in 200 years, because I know I won't be, and I won't have much to say about it. So anyway, that was good. Thanks for sharing, John. Appreciate that. Let's go on to developer sweeps and drying out. And these are different technical problems that you have in the process. And again, we're talking about direct positives, ambrotypes and tintypes, not negatives, although you can have it on negatives. I like to keep positives and negatives separated, because a lot of times when I'm talking about only apply to negatives or only slightly impact or positives and only slightly impact negatives. So I'm talking about positives here. So when you process a plate, you expose it and you develop it. If you don't have enough alcohol in your developer, if you need more alcohol or whatever, sometimes that developer will stop on the plate and start again, stop on the plate and start again. And it creates we call sweeps. Sometimes it'll go around an area. For some reason, it doesn't like that area right in the center of your plate, or if you're doing a portrait, it'll be right in the person's forehead. And then you'll get a developer island, those kind of, technical problems. That is resolved by a little bit of alcohol in your developer. It'll help flow over the viscosity. It'll help with flow, and it'll cover your plate. The ideal thing you want is you pour your developer out on your plate, you cover it all in one sweep, you catch a little bit of that, it has some silver in it, pour it back on your plate, make a little meniscus, and start counting and shaking your plate, agitating your plate a little bit. That's a perfect technical scenario for developer. But again, if it starts and stops, if you pour it down in one high and down, you'll get a big burn there. There's all kinds of things that can happen. But we're talking about the sweeps and sometimes the edge islands where the developer doesn't get. I saw a plate the other day. God, I want to say it was John's plate. I don't know if he's in here or not. But he had a plate that you could tell it was drying out. And somebody mentioned, oh, it's, you got to adjust your developer, blah, blah, blah. And there was some developer issues there, but I quickly realized people are interpreting drying out and they're mistaking it for developer sweeps. And let me just see if I can clarify this real quick. When you look at a plate and you see the edges kind of coming in and you have a different material looking around the edges, and then you might see some developer sweeps. It's a technique problem versus a time problem. But the first one, I can look at a plate now and I can see if it's drying out. And what'll happen, it'll dry from the non-drain edge usually, because the collodion is thicker on the drain edge. And it will have almost a physical characteristic on the collodion. The collodion will start kind of cracking and a little bit. And you'll always see it drying down from the edges. And a lot of times, if it's an even pour, it dries down consistently on all four edges. Developer sweeps are going to be all over the plate. They're not just going to start on the edges. They look like that, but they're not just going to start on the edges. They'll be all over the plate. So drying down doesn't mean that you've taken the plate out of the silver bath and you've had it in your camera too long. Man, in the wintertime, I've gone 25 minutes with a plate in the back of a camera trying to photograph a scene. 25 minutes and not dried out at all. When does drying out happen? Drying out happens after you pour the collodion on the plate, drain it, wick it off, and before you get in your silver bath. That time of pouring to the silver bath is critical. That's when it dries out. You're going to have the best possible technical plate you can get if you time it just right. What's called skinning over. The collodion starts to skin over. So now you're not releasing a ton of solvents in your bath. You're having this double decomposition or double replacement process happen efficiently. And you're not drying out and you're not too wet. So you can go either way. Person pours a plate, drains it, and drops it in their silver bath wet. Now you've got all kinds of solvents in your bath. Your plate doesn't sensitize right. All kinds of things. Usually, though, that's the exception. Usually, the person pours the plate. It takes so long. If they're new, they're trying to work it, and they're taking so long, and then they drain it, and they're draining it, and then they wick it off, and they take way, way, way too long. This whole process, the caveat here is temperature and humidity, but the whole process should take between 30 and 40 seconds in like 20 degrees Celsius weather, 68 Fahrenheit and 30% humidity. Should take 20 to 30 seconds, 20 to 40 seconds, somewhere in there. Too long, too short. Too long, you're going to have your plate drying down. Too short, you're going to dump solvents in your bath. The next plates you're going to get solvent streaks. Your plates are going to be muddy and mucky. Solvents prevent that double replacement process from happening efficiently. So you want to really make sure you aerate your baths very well. Even if you're doing good drops, after you pour your collodion, your drops are on time, you're still going to put a little solvent in there. So you want to aerate real well. So the perfect world, you pour the plate, 20 or 30 seconds, it skins over, you have it in your silver bath. There's no drying out. The process takes place to form those halogens, and you make your exposure. Too soon, too little, it's that Goldilocks thing again, right? Just right. Hello, Linda. Good to see you. Welcome. We're just in here chatting and rambling about the sweeps versus drying out. Really, really important that you understand those differences, because if you think it's sweeps and you're continuing to do your minute-and-a-half ritual of pouring a plate, you're still going to get it over and over again. You're going to be messing with other chemicals. And if you think it's drying out, or if you think it's drying out and it's really sweeps, you're going to have, a solvents bath issue. So keep that in mind. That's really important. Let me see. Do we have anything else here? Let me just look real quick just to make sure we're golden here. I want to make sure I covered all this. I'm probably forgetting somebody's question on that. Let's see. Did I have, no, there's that question. Okay. Yeah. Drying out versus sweeps. That's all I wanted to cover there. That'll get you to home base. So let's talk about exposure. These things kind of go, exposure is relative, right? Everybody's got their opinion about what a good exposure is and what looks good and what doesn't. I've said this many times before. Most of the images I see online, maybe I should start snagging some images and bring them in, and we can evaluate or talk about them, because proper exposure is difficult to talk about because, like I said, it is so relative. But there is the magic, quote unquote, about this process is finding that perfect balance of everything. All the plates are spinning, all the chemicals good, the light's good, the light's good, the technique is good, and everything else. But your exposure is off. That, just like anything, that the weakest link breaks the whole thing. I see exposure. is one of the biggest culprits. You can have a beautiful image and the exposure is off. It just doesn't look right. And what I see most of the time, not all of the time, is overexposure. People tend to overexpose the images. What happens when you overexpose the image? I talk a lot about this in negatives, is you start to lose density. If you overexpose a negative, you lose density. So let's translate that over to the positive side, the ambrotype tintype side. If you overexpose, what do you lose? You lose density. You lose clarification. You're now plugging that image up with tons of silver, and you're losing details. One of the most beautiful things about an ambrotype is all that tonal range. You've got a massive amount of tonal range. And if you have a scene well lit, your chemistry's right, your technique is good, and you can nail that exposure. If you think you have a good photograph at 4 seconds and the light remains the same, try that same image at 2.5 or 3 seconds and see the difference. I've shown people in workshops what a 1 second difference makes in the quality of the image. And it's absolutely amazing, because this will give you all the tonal range you want if you execute everything properly. If you don't, that's another story. But if you have your chemistry right, your technique right, your light right, and you get your exposure right, that's when you make these extraordinary photographs. This is what people talk about visually, and forget about content and storytelling and all that and the narrative concept. If you're just talking technical, this is what people freak out about. It's when you have a technical, strong ambrotype. And people say, I can't quite put my finger on it. And most of the time I say, put your finger on tonal range. That's what you're attracted. You're seeing tons of information, all the way from the brightest silver all the way down to the clear glass or the black aluminum or whatever it is substrate you're using, right? So that's what you want. Once you start eliminating those last 5 zones and you're overexposed, or eliminating the other last 5 zones and you're underexposed. Underexposed, everybody hates, right? Everybody sees underexposed and, oh man, what is that? I can't see that. Overexposed the same amount, people say, oh, that's a great photograph, because you can see figures or objects or things, but you don't see that tonal range. So when you're looking at wet collodion images, analyze them. Say, is this properly exposed? Is this, or the artifact, do they have sweeps? Is it drying out? Is it pinhole, whatever technique problems they have, right? So pay attention to that. When you're looking at wet collodion photographs, start paying attention to exposure and see if the whole image is bright and there's no, remember Caravaggio, the Italian painter, right? I love that high contrast kind of painting, and yet you still have all that range in what's lit, right? It's that beautiful richness where you have blacks and bright whites, and then all those zones between. If you don't have that, I think you're missing out a little bit. Yes, Jean, this is a good question. I've had this asked quite a few times. Yes, exact same exposure, no difference. There shouldn't be any variations on any of the substrates you use. A well-exposed photograph is going to have the tonal range on glass, the tonal range on metal, or the tonal range on plastic. It doesn't matter. That is always, the physics remain the same. Absolutely. You're dealing with the same chemical processes, the same light energy, all given the same, absolutely the same exposure. I know there's talk out there that there are different types of exposures on positive. Some of this stuff I get emailed to me, I can't believe. I have to go check out myself and see if people are really saying that. It's like, are they really talking about different exposures and things? I mean, maybe what they're really talking about is the quality of the tonal range. Maybe they're saying something different. Maybe they exposed their tintype a second less than their glass ambrotype, and their tintype looks better, that kind of stuff. It happens all the time. People get out driving in this process and they assign, correlation and causation. They assign something that's not proper, and then that starts getting spread through the community, and it doesn't It doesn't function that way. It's physics or physics. A direct positive with the same chemistry, same value, same light, same exposure, same technique, process, everything should be exactly the same. The substrate shouldn't matter at all, other than personal preference. You may see, I think you'd definitely see a different color with the asphaltum, right? We've already talked about that, but no, same exposure, same exposure. Good question, though. Not the first time I've been asked that for sure, because I think there's a little bit of rumors spreading around about that kind of stuff sometimes, and it's just people's experience. It's anecdotal. A lot of what I say is anecdotal as well too, but just my personal experience. But some things, the chemistry and the physics are always the same, regardless of the person talking. So keep that in mind. And we're all fallible, that's for sure. So I'm the first one to step up and say, I am a fallible human being. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'll take it. I may challenge you a little bit, and we'll get to the bottom of it. But I'm happy to talk about whatever you think something's off, or you found something else, and we'll work through it. And if I don't know, I'll find out. I have great resources. I have great chemists, engineers, biologists. I have a great resource at my fingertips to ask questions to. I'm not a chemist. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a, I'm an artist that uses photography and has a specific product that I need to learn so I can achieve what I want to do. That's the only reason I know the stuff that I know, because out of necessity, right? Necessity is the mother of all inventions. When you need something, you figure it out. And information, and it's just nowadays the sources are getting so convoluted and so plugged up. I bet you I get maybe 2 or 3 emails a week asking me to join some collodion Facebook group. Honestly, there are that many collodion Facebook groups out there. It's nothing wrong with that, but can you imagine all the opinions and diversity? And if you guys, I don't do this, but I know some people do. If you belong to all those groups, you're hearing different things in all of these groups. Different people are saying different things, and you're like, God, what is going on here, right? And there may be some truth, a little truth to some of them, a lot of truth to others, no truth to some of them. There may be all of that, but at the end of the day, you have to come back to the science. You have to come back to the actual evidence of the physics, the chemistry, the all those things have to. It just can't be based on opinion, right? That Dunning-Kruger effect. You've been working in collodion for a year, and now you've got all the answers about everything. And a lot of times you're just regurgitating things that you don't really understand. And people will, depending on how you communicate that, people can interpret those things, and then they bake up their own idea, and then it's off to the races we go. And I don't mind that. It doesn't affect me necessarily. I do get a lot of questions every week about, I heard this, or they said in this group, or he said this, or she said that. And if it's something that I know about, I address and I say, look at these resources, read this primary literature or source literature, read about this chemical or this compound, or, I try to direct them to resources, not my opinion. My opinion doesn't really matter a whole lot here. What matters is the science behind it. So try to learn the science behind. My whole thing has been, since I've been in wet plate teaching it, I've encouraged people to learn the science behind it for their safety, their health, all that stuff, of course, so they know how to handle the compounds, and then so they can make the images they want to make. That's the bottom line. You want to be able to make the photographs aesthetically that you want to make. And whatever that is, understanding the process and the variance, the positives and negatives in that process are really important to understand. And I know you don't learn chemistry overnight. You don't, it takes time. You experiment, you work in your own ways, you develop your own theories, right? And if those theories or hypotheses and those turns out to be theories, and you can present them to the world and say, here's my evidence for this. This is what I've experienced. What's your feedback? That's what I've done. Besides your books, can you recommend some other? Linda, yes, I think I can. I'll recommend books to read that will help you understand the process. And one of the best books you can read is any book on organic chemistry. Learn about organic chemistry. And specifically in that book, organic chemistry book, and it doesn't matter really, get one in your own language, get one, so really be able to understand what they're talking about so you don't have to wonder what they're saying. And look at these basic chemical reactions like double replacement. Learn that. Just go into organic chemistry, learn what's happening when you put the salts in your collodion, when you put the solvents, when you put it in the silver bath. What are you forming? When you develop it, what are those compounds doing? Once you understand how this works chemically and how it functions and the physics behind it, any problem that comes up, you're going to be within this distance rather than this distance, or this distance rather than this distance. You're going to be much closer to solving the problem, because a lot of people get in this, and I've seen them work for years in it and never, there's a lot of artists and a lot of people that just don't want to do that kind of academic bookworm chemistry and biology and all this stuff, or physics rather. I don't know why I keep saying biology, but a lot of artists just want to use the process. But this is a process that demands that you understand it to some degree just to be able to use it, not only for safety, but for making the photographs. So at the end of the day, you're going to hit a block, and some are going to be small and you're going to overcome them and you're going to say, yahoo, awesome. And others are going to be monumental and you're going to say, I'm stuck. I don't know what happened. What's wrong? I was just making photographs a week ago. What's happening? And those big roadblocks, those big walls you hit are going to be the ones that where basic understanding of basic organic chemistry, and specifically the processes, the whatever you want to call it. Yeah, we'll call it the processes within this that happen chemically are usually the compounds interacting. One of those or both of those compounds are going to be a problem for some reason, and you're going to have a good understanding of why. About exposure, and especially overexposure for portrait, I saw a lot of female portraits from 19th century. They look slightly overexposed. Intuition is aesthetic consideration. Yes. Portraits from the 19th century, for the majority of them, are overexposed. What they'll do is they'll normally expose for the clothing, or I won't say the shadow area. Let's just for argument's sake, let's say they're exposing for the shadow areas. That means usually the skin is going to be lighter than the clothing, and it's going to blow the skin out. A lot of times they wanted to blow the skin out for wrinkles and aesthetic reasons and things like that. But everything else is going to be perfectly exposed. And so, yes, a lot of times, and there's still that 17th, 18th century kind of holdover for this kind of pale look. They still had all that aesthetic concern going on, right? If you look at paintings and all those things. So my opinion is that aesthetic worked great for them, and that's what they wanted. But in the 21st century, and understanding what we can achieve with this, and looking technically at those dark, rich areas with this beautiful, subtle range. That's what ambrotypes can give you, is this beautiful, subtle range of tonality. It's kind of gone in what we're doing today. And it's mostly because we're using artificial light. It doesn't travel. It doesn't fill those areas well. They use Northlit Studios, so they have this full, beautiful, comprehensive light without being over, blown on the bodies and the backgrounds and stuff. Skin tones a little bit, right? Yes, yes. So that's my opinion. There's a different aesthetic. I think we don't exploit the tonal range in the process today like we should, especially, and I'm not just portraits, for anything, any scene. Usually the landscape images, because you're outside, you're going to have that sky that's just going to blaze out. So you're going to expose for the proper area you want. So a lot of times you will have closer to proper exposures outdoors or in the natural light than you do with portraits and artificial light, because you're just looking at skin tone and not really not really looking for overall value. So not all the time, but that's just kind of general. So that's my opinion. Yes, Linda, that's true. That's the hard part. Can't find much in Swedish about wet plate. Yeah, probably not. So maybe I need to read about chemistry. Yes, just that's it. Just get a basic book on organic chemistry. There's a couple out there. I'll try to find them. They're pretty dense reads, but there are books about photochemical processes that you could read. But really, all you're concerned with here are your conversion of the salts, your reduction with the developer and the iron, and your restraining qualities, chemically speaking. Then, you know, how to maintain those chemicals and interact with them and all that stuff. That's like in my book or some other source that gives you that kind of information. But the basic chemistry is what you want for sure. I've had a lot of value. There's a lot of value in spending time with, not that I wanted to be a chemist, and I'm not a chemist, but it's helped me overcome a lot of the technical problems in the process, understanding what's happening and being able to identify problems as they happen. I love it in workshops when I can create a problem and show the person how to resolve it, right? And so these common problems, and a lot of it's technique driven, but a lot of it you can create chemically and get through and show them how to get over those first few hurdles. Matt says, I really enjoyed the 1934 Kodak book called Elementary Photographic Chemistry. Perfect. There you go. That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Matt. Do that. I don't know if they talk about wet collodion in there, but that's good. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of good resources. I've never ran across a book other than there's the one that I cite in my old negative pamphlet for my first book was the Kodak making wet plate collodion negatives. They go into a little bit of science in that one too. So they have there's some resources out there, but mostly experience working with identifying problems and then having a basic understanding of what is happening in the process. And, you know, 99% of the time, it's going to be pilot error. It's going to be your problem, some technique that you've miscalculated, whether it's drying the plate out, your poor development technique, times, temperatures, humidities, those kind of things. But chemistry will sneak up behind you and say, this is how you resolve that, right? You have veiling and fogging in the hot weather. You know, you need a little more acid in your developer to restrain that. Those really basic kind of things that are happening in the process really help you understand all that stuff. So that's good, guys. It's 11:11 in the morning here. I'm going to head it back over to my land. I'm building some walls today for my well house. So I'm going to head on over there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be back next week. I'm going to pop in even if I have all this crap going on. It's not crap. It's good stuff. Even if I'm busy, I'm going to make an hour and a half to pop in here and say, hey, I appreciate everybody coming in. Thank you for the support on my books. Thank you for supporting me through all these years. And I know there's a lot of you out there watching that have been silent and following me and helping me along my journey for years. So I want to make sure I say thank you. And all of you in here watching, old, new, whatever, to the process, it doesn't matter. If you bought my book or not, doesn't matter. I appreciate you joining me, spending your hour and a half with me on a Saturday or Sunday or Friday, whatever day it might be you're watching this. I just really appreciate it. I just want you guys to know that. Thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next Saturday. Have a good weekend. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.